DocuGen is one of the best performing apps also in the marketplace, and he will talk today about the guide for onboarding success on full marketplace apps. He will share more and more about his knowledge and experience from the Monday marketplace. I'm getting a question to join, so we will start right now.
Okay, great. Thanks, Somer. And I might be a senior, but I'm young at heart.
Yeah. I'm a senior in the marketplace.
So welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining. I will be presenting today my experience as having built DocuGen on the Monday marketplace. My name is Sami Caracand. I've been working with Monday as a channel partner since 2017, but we built DocuGen in 2020, and we've been growing it as a separate company altogether since then. Forgive me for my voice. I'm recovering from a bit of cold. So if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the Q&A, not in the chat. I have the Q&A panel in front of me. So if I see questions, I will be answering them as I go. Just a bit of background about DocuGen. So we were lucky because we were invited to build an app for the marketplace before it went public. That was, I think, in late 2020. And we were one of very few apps that were on the marketplace on the day it went live for customers. And that obviously gave us an advantage in terms of the number of installs and in terms of the traction. And that was something that we're very happy with to start early on. What DocuGen does is, at the moment, it's a tool for generating generating documents and sending them for electronic signature. And we continuously release new features and new releases of DocuGen. On average, once a month, we have a major new release with new features for our customers. That being said, if anyone here has an app that does something similar, please do the opposite of whatever I say. I'll start with a quote that I really like. It's a very simple one. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry is a French writer and aviator from the last century, and he was full of wisdom. And what he said here applies to us as well as app publishers. We need to have a plan for everything we do, so that our goals are achievable. What I want to look at in this slide deck is the funnel, the app funnel, and this should be almost identical for any app on the marketplace. So we're looking at the top of the funnel, which is your listing on the app marketplace. It could also include your website if you have one, or any other web-based presence. That leads to installs. Then the installs lead to activation, and I'll talk about this in a bit. Activation leads to people checking out in terms of upgrades.
Second, the screen sharing is not working for some reason.
Oh, apologies. Yes, here I was showing my picture, and then I was describing what DocuGen is about, which you can find on the app marketplace, as I mentioned. And this is the quote I was mentioning by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry: "A goal without a plan is just a wish," right? So hopefully in this slide deck, I can give you some ideas about how you can make your plans to achieve your goals with your app. It starts with the listing and installs, which turn into activation, which turn into subscriptions that hopefully later on will upgrade. Now, obviously, the dark side of this is churn, people who unsubscribe or uninstall, and those have their own path as well in terms of handling them, but I'm not going to touch upon them unless someone asks. You have to find a way to measure every single step in your funnel. We use salesforce.com just because I know it, I'm familiar with it, but it could be any tool that allows you to get the data from the different places whether it's your own app or whether it's the marketplace, whether it's the webhooks from monday.com, but you need to be able to put them in a dashboard and be able to see that every single day, so you know what you're doing and you measure what you're doing. You need to also have your North Star. What is the single most important metric that you care about? If everything else was to be thrown away in the garbage, what's the one metric you want to keep? For us, and I suspect for most apps, is the annual recurring revenue, which is the value of the subscriptions you get from your customers. So in the subsequent slides, I'm going to show you everything is driven by how do we increase ARR. If your objective is different, if your objective is to increase the number of installs, then you might have a completely different plan. And I would find it hard to find a reason why would anyone publish an app just to get installs. The whole point is to get ARR. Of course, to get ARR, you have to start with install, but that's not enough. So make sure you define what your North Star is, what your most important metric is. The top of the funnel. And again, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A panel. I have it open on my screen, and I'll address questions as they come. This is a screenshot from the app publishing page, which you all should have access to if you have an app that's published on the marketplace. I look at it almost every day to make sure that there are visits to the listing on the marketplace. If there is a drop, like there was here earlier this year, or if there is an uptick, I want to find out why. If it's something that drove the listing with more installs or more visits, it's something maybe that we can do again. Or if there's something that drove it down, I want to find out what it is to avoid doing it again. Some tips we learned along the way, how you can improve your listing and the number of installs, is to make sure your description of the app, which you can provide and which you can update from your side as well, has the right terms in them, the kind of terms that the profile of the customer you're looking to reach to is looking for. In our case, you see it's DocuGen. We have people typing in DocuSign, which is a competing app for electronic signatures. So we have electronic signatures as well. But it's interesting and it's nice to see that people looking for specifically our competitor end up on our list. And you want to do that as well. Anybody looking for document, for doc, for signature. Another thing, and that's very important, is to continuously and actively seek customer reviews. You have to go out of your way to ask for them. Don't wait for customers to provide reviews. You see, we have 92 reviews as of yesterday. We reach out to 3 times as many customers to get those reviews. 2 out of 3 do not respond. Only 1 out of 3 do respond. And these are one-on-one outreach. It's not automated. I reach out to a customer and say, look, I see you've been using our app. Would you like to provide a review? Most customers are more than happy to do that. Most as in a third for us. Set up a partnership program. Now that's very intensive because you will have to do a lot of work to put a partnership program in place. We've just started doing that. So the partners we work with are monday.com resellers or channel partners and consultants who are independent and provide consulting services to customers on monday.com. And for those, we give them tools, like we give them access to paid features of DocuGen so that they can play with it, so that they can demo it to their own customers. We help them sell. So if they have a customer who has a complex use case, we help them build it. And that's an important part of building a funnel for installs at the top. And promote the app everywhere, like I'm doing now. I'm talking to app developers, but it's another way of promoting DocuGen. One of the questions I have is, how are you seeking reviews, email or within the app? In our case, we're seeking reviews by email. Basically, I look at who are our most active users. Sometimes I see a back and forth with our support team and the customer. Once their case is resolved successfully, I reach out and I say, look, if you're happy with the service, can you please provide a review? So it's kind of labor intensive, but I found it to be the best way to do it. Activation. So I'll define activation in a second, but it's a very important metric and we track it by cohort. So by cohort, I just mean by monthly install. So for example, if you look at this bar here, it's everybody who installed the app in September 2024. How many of those, excuse me, how many of those ended up activating DocuGen, basically? I got a question about partners, so I'm going to go back quickly to that slide. The partners, so basically, if you have access to the partners of Monday.com, and they're actually publicly listed. If you go to the Monday.com website, there is a page for partners. You can filter and search by geography and by specific features. You can get that list. You can find contacts on LinkedIn, or you can even find contacts from those partners who at some point installed your app for themselves or for a customer of theirs. That's how you can find their contact details. But it's easy to make a list of partners. How do you define a good partner? That's another question I have. It's hard to tell in advance. I mean, one of the things I look at is how active they are as a partner of Monday. Is it their only business, or is it just one of other things they do? Obviously, you want them to be focused because you want them to be capable, to be very knowledgeable of Monday, and to get them to know more about your app as well. This is a quote from a book I read, and I'll tell you what the book is at the end. Truly great software companies are built to be product-led. So product-led growth is a trend in SaaS, where basically you try to build your product in a way that requires minimal one-on-one intervention. So customers should be very easily able to install, configure, use, and subscribe to your software with as little involvement from someone from your side. How do you measure activation? Well, what is activation first? Activation is called the aha moment. It's the time when a user, for the first time, is able to use your app successfully. For example, in our case, we define it as the first time a user is able to generate a document. In the case of Facebook, for example, they defined it as the first time someone was able to connect to 10 friends. So the definition is up to you, but it's very critical because it's the aha moment. Is the first thing you want to achieve after someone installs your app. You're not going to be able to get them to subscribe unless you first get them to say, aha, it works and it does what it's supposed to do for me. How do you get to the aha moment? The onboarding is the most important part. How you hold the hand of your user from the moment they install to the moment they reach that aha moment. Whether it's messaging within the product, some apps use those bubbles that appear and guide the user into clicking where they should. You could use an email sequence, and I think you should use that anyway, where, let's say, the first 10 or 14 days after install, the user gets an email every day giving them a tip or a short lesson on how to do certain things. You can do one-on-one calls. So we do that as well. So part of our onboarding sequence, we invite customers to book calls with us. The vast majority don't bother, but a few do jump on calls, and it helps us help them reach the activation. And we have webinars as well, regularly scheduled for our customers. Monday also offers you a great way to give your customers predefined, pre-configured templates, boards, work docs, whatever it is, with the workflows pre-configured by you for your customer. This way you save them time building all of this from scratch. I have a nice question here. How long do people stay installed before they get activated? We see a person or two a day install and uninstall within 5 to 10 minutes without even looking at the app. That's very interesting, Kyle, because we see that too, and we kind of wonder, so why did they install it? Now, people who uninstall after 5 minutes, I think it's a little bit like shopping. You're trying it on, you don't like it, you don't want to bother, you're going to throw it away. But the time it takes to reach activation should be very quick, and it depends on your app. In our case, we look at the average time it takes people to reach the activation, but also I have a cutoff of 1 hour. I see of those who reached activation, what's the percent that reached activation within 1 hour of install. That rate in our case is in the lower double digits, and we're trying to improve it. so that they are more and more activated faster and faster. And finally, constantly seek feedback. So I go on calls with customers at least 3 to 4 times a week. Sometimes it's to just fix an issue. I tell my support team, I'll take this call. Or sometimes it's a customer who requested a feature that I want to understand more about. But if you're in charge of an app on the marketplace, if you are an app developer, or if you're an app founder, you have to talk to customers the whole time. You have to understand what are their pains, what they like, what they don't like of your product. But that being said, I want to give you a little bit of a warning. This is something Henry Ford said also last century. He said, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. This is the guy who invented the mass-produced cars. So he set up a factory. He said cars should not be expensive. They should be available to everyone. He set up the assembly lines for the first time in history where you could churn out many cars every hour, and they cost a fraction of what cars back then used to cost. And that innovation would not have been possible if he had just asked the customer, what is it that you're looking for? What he did, though, is he identified the problem. And that's not just when you launch the app, but that's also when you build new features on top of your app. When sometimes you decide to retire some features, you gotta think, what is the problem the customer is trying to solve, regardless of what the customer thinks is the solution, because more often than not, it's not the correct solution. Okay, I have another question here I'm going to address as well. We notice in some instances that the email of an account installing our app is not the email of the user that is going to use the app. So our emails mostly go unread. How do you find the right emails to email? Well, we divided the persona of the users of our app into. We defined the ones who we consider to be builders. These are the ones who install the app, configure it. The messaging is different from the consumers, which are the users who will actually use the app. Because I noticed that, and I agree with you, especially with larger accounts where you have someone who is administrator of monday.com. They are not necessarily users, but they're someone maybe from IT who is responsible for managing monday.com as an app. Someone asks them, can you install DocuGen, or can you install GetSign, whatever it is. They install it, then they walk away. They don't care. They're not going to use it. So the trick here is, how do you get to the person who's going to use it and help them configure it? Yeah, you gotta figure out how to do that for your app. Another possibility is that the person installing the app could actually be a partner of monday.com who is installing it for their customer. And we see that a lot. So we see somebody from, let's say, Carbon Web installing the app for a company that has nothing to do with Carbon Web, except that they have them as their consultants. And in this case, we jump right straight to it, reach out to Carbon Web. We say, look, great, thank you very much. You're a part of our partnership program. We want to help you out here. And we track that as well. Excuse me. So in the first chart here, we see how many people are clicking on the upgrade button, whether or not they end up upgrading. We see how many are clicking. And then, sorry, the first one is actually the ones reaching the quota. So in our case, DocuGen is a consumption-based app. So they pay based on how many documents they generate, not based on how many users. So we look at how much consumption versus the plan that they're on. So the closer they are to the limit of their plan, the higher the likelihood that they will actually upgrade. In the case of most other apps, it's the number of seats that you sold. If you sold 5 seats and you got 5 users using those seats, this is also reaching their quota. And there's a likelihood they will upgrade. And you got to be proactive. You got to send them an email, say, look, I noticed you have all 5 seats taken. Would you consider upgrading? It's that little nudge that sometimes makes the difference. Now, believe it or not, the fact that they clicked on upgrade doesn't mean they will actually go through and put their credit card number and complete the purchase. So we look at how many have actually from initiated checkout to actually making a subscription. And you notice they don't follow the same curve. So even though here we have more and more people clicking upgrade, it doesn't necessarily mean more and more people are paying for a subscription. And that's a problem I have to solve. So the question here is why? Why are less people, in terms of percentage-wise, paying for a subscription after clicking that button? Now, a question I've been asking myself for a while is, what are the right numbers? What are good numbers? I mean, I obviously obfuscated our numbers here, but if I were looking at them, how would I know whether it's good or bad, especially the subscriptions? And I came to terms with something that I think works well for us. We're looking at the rates and how the rates are moving. So all these slices in your funnel, you got to look at the percentage moving from one slice to the next. It's great if you have 1,000 installs, but what's the percentage of those that actually reach activation? So that's the activation rate by cohort. Out of those, how many ended up with a subscription? And so on. And as long as the rates of conversion are pointing upward, like the activation rate here is slightly going up, right? Not that much, but it is going up. Means we're doing something right. If you look at the checkout to subscription, meaning from the moment they click the button to the moment they pay, how many of those actually paid? That's not doing so well. So that's something I need to look at. Why is it that fewer people who click on the button to upgrade actually end up paying for a subscription? I need to figure that. So for me, it's the conversion rate and the trend of that conversion rate. I'll leave you with one piece of advice, a book I read 2 years ago, Product-Led Growth by Wes Bush. It's available on Amazon, on Kindle or hard copy or probably paperback, but it's a great book, very easy read. And it's a lot of nuggets of wisdom about what you should do to make sure your app is successful, well, especially if you're selling to the kind of Monday.com customers that we constantly see, which are small and medium businesses that are not necessarily suited for the kind of hand-holding that an enterprise would expect. That's all from my side. That's my experience with DocuGen on the Monday Marketplace. Happy to hear your thoughts or any questions you might have.
I'd like to sum it up. Sami, it was awesome. I think I learned a lot. It was great to hear about your experience and your best practices with the both Monday Marketplace and working with Monday people from around the world. So I really want to thank you for joining us today and holding this workshop. I also want to thank everyone who joined us. I sent on the chat a quick survey that you can answer to let us know which more webinars and events you want and how was this one. So it will be great to hear your thoughts, to read your thoughts. And Sami, thanks again. It was awesome. I really appreciate it. I'm sure that everyone as well here on the webinar learned a lot. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much, everyone. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Sami.